How's it going? So, we made ourselves a blowtorch in the last video, and you know what that means? We're gonna make ourselves a furnace. Right, the plan is to create ourselves a sheet metal box. It'll have a hole in the side for the blowtorch and then some feet on the other. The feet are so we can rotate it over and it can act as a forge as well as a furnace. Now, what we need to do is create ourselves an insulating layer. Now, what I'm thinking of using is perlite and concrete. Now, what we need to do is create ourselves a test panel so we can figure out what is the correct ratio of perlite to concrete so we can have the best mix ratio for this design. Right, let's jump outside and do that. Look at that! Like I bought one. Right, we've now got all the ingredients. Concrete, perlite, bucket, and a bit of water. Unfortunately, I only have a mini fork. I think my dog has chewed all of the trowels, so hopefully this works for mixing. Cool. I'll see you tomorrow. Right, so the concrete's to the side now drying off. Let's jump over to the plasma cutter and cut ourselves out the body of the furnace. Right, box is all folded up. Unfortunately, I didn't get all the lengths the same, so it's an uneven box. That's okay though, we'll use the bottom plates to insert in to square everything up, as well as make sure that the top and bottom sections are even, or at least a mirror of each other, just so they sit together nicely. Right, let's jump over to the welder and start doing this stuff. Right, with our top section now on the table, we're going to have ourselves an exhaust pipe. This is what's going to go in the middle and take up the space that lets the exhaust gases out. Now what we need to do is mark where the center of the pipe's going to fit on the board here. Taking the diameter, which is 48, dividing it in two to get the radius, which is 24. We can then mark 24 mils out from the center point of this square section. Right, now that we've got the 4 marks, all off the center section, we can now put the pipe on. It lines up with each mark, and boom. It's now going to sit in the center of the square section here. Fantastic. Let's jump outside and cut out our piece and weld it up, and we'll go from there. Right, so it's warped like crazy, kind of expected that. Hoping that this will reinforce it, so what I'll do is work my way around. What I should have done is welded the edges on first and then welded this pipe on. I guess hindsight's quite a gift, isn't it? I can wholeheartedly confirm sheet metal work is not my strength. I blew through a couple times and I didn't really plan enough for the warping. So I guess grinder is my friend today. Let's grind this back and make it look a little bit more presentable. Right, learning from our mistakes of the top piece, we will use the bottom plate as a template just to hold it in place while we weld the walls up. Once the walls are welded up, then we'll tack this in place. Hopefully that will reduce shrinkage and warpage, as well as make sure everything's still square and even. Right, let's do that. So we've cut ourselves a bit of mesh, as well as a set of nubs that are just M6 bar that's bent. Now what we're going to do is install all these nubs just around on the lids, and then weld in our piece of mesh. Now the reason we're doing this is so the concrete actually has something to mechanically bind to. If we didn't, having this upside down, the concrete and perlite mix would just simply fall out even once it cured. Right, let's start welding this up, and then we can start adding all the nubs to the main body. Right, now got ourselves some crazy ass abstract art. Let's start working on the final stuff. Right, one of the last jobs is making sure that the blowtorch doesn't just fall out of the furnace. Now what we're going to do is make ourselves a bracket out of pipe here. It's got a 42 inner diameter where the pipe itself is 40. We'll be able to chuck a hole through there, tap it, and put a bolt through. That means when the pipe's in there, you'll be able to tighten down the bolt and it'll snug down right onto the pipe, making sure the blowtorch doesn't fall out. That's pretty rough welding right there. Right, giving you the quickest breakdown. The glass fibre reinforced works really well. It feels really structurally sound while still being quite light and concrete. 8:1, terrible. It's just falling apart. It could be useful, but I don't think this mix is what we're going to use. 6:1 works out fantastic. It is quite a dense mix still, but yeah, it feels really good. 5:1's just too dense, I think. So what we'll do is we'll set ourselves a little test over there, heat them up, and see which one is the most insulating. Right, to it. Right, so what we'll do is we'll take the temperature of the brick on each side now, and then after 5 minutes of using the torch against it, we'll take down the measurements, and then we'll compare between all the bricks, and then we'll come back and have a bit of a definitive answer of what brick I should. Right, let's do it. Outside's gone up from 16.7 to 30 degrees, or 30.6, and front side, sorry, I should have done that way faster, 132. What? That's 5:1. That's pretty good actually. Let's try the 6:1. Right, so after all that testing, the 8:1 and 5:1 performed extremely similar. The 6:1 performed the third worst, and then the 8:1 performed the worst. Now the reason I want to use the 5:1, even though it was slightly worse in its thermal properties, is that it is much easier to mix and pour. This is very important. We don't want any air bubbles in the furnace, and so the 5:1 is the mix that we're going to choose. Right, let's jump outside and start mixing up our final bit of concrete. Right. Before we start mixing up the concrete, we've made a couple changes. We've put in this bit of angle section. Now the reason we've done that is this lid's going to be extremely heavy. Even though it's perlite concrete, it's still going to be so heavy. And the hinges are going to be on the edge here. That's just going to pull the edge off and pull it away from the concrete. Putting this in, it's going to reinforce that edge, as well as I've added some nubs on the bottom, so it's really going to bite into the concrete and get a really good mesh. Now, the way we're going to keep everything together and aligned, so we've got even gaps around everything, is we've made a little board here. Now you can obviously tell I've used a couple packs of staples. Yes, this is about the 5th attempt at getting them lined up. There was so many issues with it, as well as everything started ripping out, stuff started unaligning, very painful. It should look like this. I don't know how to describe how it should look. Like this. Just like this. Oh. Right. Right-o. I'm going to mix another batch and I'll see you in a second. Right, that's another mix made. Unfortunately, I'm running low on perlite. I found a better way of mixing it. If you add a bit of water, you half the perlite, mix in the concrete, sprinkling it over, and then add the rest of the perlite. Makes the mixing about half as long as if you just dump the ingredients in. Right, I guess we're going to mix the rest of the perlite and concrete I've got left. Right, we've got the next mix. This is the rest of all the concrete and perlite we've got. So I'm going to do the lid first, just so it is a uni body. And then if we need more, we can always do the bottom of the furnace at a later date. Doesn't matter if it's got a bit of a split in between. It will be held in by its weight, where this is held in by its own strength. Right, so everything's full of perlite and concrete now, just enough. I've literally used everything I've got. Now we're going to chuck in our bottom plate. Now it'd be better to leave this off for drying and curing, but as you can see it's all warped and puckered, so we need to chuck this in so we can return this back to its original shape. Right, so I've put some tape on just to pull all the edges in. It's really nice and square now, or at least as square as I can get it after it's all puckered from welding. I guess there's nothing to do now except for clean up and let it dry over the next few days. It's been a day now. I've had it outside warming up in the sun all morning. It's cured enough for me to start doing some work on it. And then we still need to give it another day before I pull it off the mold, I think. Right, what we're doing now is welding the feet onto the bottom of the furnace. Now what we've got here is bits of 20mm bar. They're all uniform in height, so hopefully this means it won't rock, as well as it'll make it easier to slide on the concrete. Right, the moment of truth. Look at that. Obviously it needs a bit of drying still. Right, we've got to have the mold and it's looking really good. The water sank to the bottom and has slowed down the curing process, but that's okay. With it all open like this, it should dry off and start curing properly. I guess we've got to now start adding the feet to the side. Then we can start doing the hinges and the handles and yeah, there's not much left, is there? Cool, let's do it. Right, quick tip, if you're welding into a gap like this, like a 90-degree corner, you want the welder to be on the upside a little bit longer than the bottom side. That's because of gravity. It's going to pull the weld puddle down, so the longer on the upside, a bit of it is going to fall down to the bottom side, so you just work your way, pausing a little bit longer on the top side. You'll end up getting a much more even, fuller. Anyway, quick tip from someone that's not a welder. Right, another quick trick, if you're Y-wheeling and you can't get off some of the splatter, come in with your cold chisel, just knocks right off. Get ourselves some beefy hinges, we'll just tack them on, do some test movements to make sure that there's enough clearance, and then once we've done that we'll seam them up and then I think we're done. The last major thing we need to do is add a stop. Ooh. So if this just dropped open, it would hit here. All the force would go through the hinges and pull. This would peel off both edges away from the concrete faces or surfaces. By putting in a little angle section just above, it's going to fall down, stop at a certain distance. Also, it's going to transfer the load into the hinge brackets, which are reinforced. This is just going to mean that it's going to push itself in together rather than pulling itself apart, if that makes sense. I've added handles and now we need to paint it. So I'm going to paint it with an etch primer and then hit it with like exhaust paint. I think I might paint the inside purely to see if the exhaust paint can handle up to 2000 degrees. I'm pretty sure propane burns at 2000, so that would be a good test of the cheapest exhaust paint I can buy. Right, let's slap on the etching primer. Shocking. I don't think I was a detailer in my past lives. Oh well, you can't really say grinder and paint makes water ain't when you're not even a good painter either. Maybe I'm a good no, not good at grinding either, crikey. Bad at everything. Not to point any fingers, but someone read the can wrong and it's 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, not 2000 degrees centigrade, so unsure if it's going to be good enough for what I'm doing, but we're halfway there, so we may as well just finish it and we'll just see what happens. Right, it's past 11 o'clock at night now. More pork's out and perfect time to give the furnace a wee test. We'll light it and we'll see how it goes. I've got a block of 70 by 150 solid round stock in there and my hope is to get that glowing red hot. Right, enough chit chat, let's get this roaring. Right, it's been on for about 5 5 to 10 minutes. Honestly, everything's glowing. This is, wow, that is red hot. Wow. Right, what should we do with this? I guess I should get a bucket and... Right, going for a bucket of water. Wow. Still glowing in the middle. It's like a light, that's so cool. Right, fantastic. We'll jump inside and do a breakdown. I'm really happy with how it's performed. Outside's still cold to the touch. Wow, I say cold. Lukewarm. Right, let's jump inside and we'll do a breakdown. Ooh. Right, so we just finished testing out the forge / furnace. It worked fantastically. Now we would be running it outside for a proper job, but for testing we did it inside. It has turned the shed into a bit of a sauna. Now talking about its functionality, it worked fantastically. We're able to heat up chunks of steel in a matter of minutes. Now I haven't tested its capabilities as a furnace, but I'm confident it'll be able to melt aluminium and copper in a matter of minutes. Talking about its drawbacks, the concrete itself, concrete and perlite, has cracked and hasn't cured properly, so water's still boiling out of it. Now we should leave it 28 days and then you wouldn't have had this problem, but I was impatient. The other thing is the interior liner, made out of steel, has buckled and has pulled off the concrete. Now if we'd let the concrete dry, it wouldn't have cracked, as well as it wouldn't have released the support nubs that were gripping into it. So if you just let it cure, you wouldn't have all these problems, I don't think. But nevertheless, it's not a huge problem. I might cut it out and replace it with something, but I haven't really thought that through too much yet. Overall, I'm so happy with how this has performed. It's quite heavy, but it maintains a high internal temperature for a very long time. I'm able to have the gas torch on very low, but it still maintains the high temperatures. The exterior retains a low temperature, so you can still put your hand on the outside without getting a burn or anything. Yeah, overall, just really happy with how it's performed. The hinges work flawlessly. It's so easy to swing open. Yeah. I guess we've got to make ourselves like an anvil and a hammer and we can start doing some forging and stuff. So very exciting. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. I'll catch you next time. Thank you very much for watching.